The old syndrome. After my wife's affair partner kind of ended it, she immediately went full bore the other direction. This is what I call old Chevy syndrome. Your spouse sees a new car on the lot and says, "Oh, that looks so nice." Then she begins to really notice all the faults and problems that her old Chevy has given her. The way it leaks a little oil, the way it can be hard to start on cold mornings without using the special start sequence. Pump twice slowly, then start and slowly give it gas until engine is above 2000, then lower it slowly to idle and let it warm up a bit, for those who actually have an old Chevy. Then the way the seats are a little worn, the way the carpet isn't as clean as the new ones, the way the AC isn't customizable to passenger and driver like the new car is. The old Chevy is a little louder when going down the road, that new one sure looks quiet. And that new car promises to be better with the kids than the old Chevy by using its built-in DVD players. And all her friends tell her how she deserves that new car, how the old Chevy has always been a disappointment to her and to them. So, after seeing all this abuse, no wonder she has to buy that new car. So, she does, and she is so happy with it. It's better in every way than her old Chevy, which now sits in the driveway. Its former spot in the garage, now being taken up by the new car. She is not seeing that the old Chevy has faithfully performed for her and the family for many years, despite the neglect. And when it did break down, it was only $30 in parts and 30 mins in labor to get it back up and running. That it never complained about not getting taken care of the way she is taking care of the new car. That it put up with the bumps of the road without complaining and throwing in a check engine light for every little thing. But as a few months go by, the wife gets that bill every month and says, "Damn, that car is nice, but it sure is expensive. My old Chevy never required such a payment. In fact, I never gave much money to my old Chevy at all." Then her cell phone rings, it's her insurance agent, and he tells her what her new monthly premium will be since the new car requires full coverage. She starts to see that this car is going to be a great expense. Then they take their first road trip, and she has been looking forward to getting that new car out on the open road. She is comfy in these new seats, but the angle isn't quite what she likes. And she is annoyed at how cramped this new car is. But she is still very excited, because she loves family road trips. The games the kids and parents play as they drive, the ABC sign game, the license plate game, slug bug. But she notices the kids pop in a DVD as soon as they get in. And when they put on the Bluetooth headphones that came as part of the backseat entertainment package, it becomes clear to her that the new car treats the kids as a distraction. She has her first fond memory of longing for her old Chevy, now sitting covered in dust and leaves in the driveway back home. Meanwhile, back home, a young woman who just moved to the neighborhood is out jogging like she does every evening. And she passes by this classic Chevy sitting in the driveway. And each day she comes to appreciate it more and more. Its striking lines mixed with gentle curves, roomy interior, and its subtle way it unmistakably conveys its strength. The way cars were back when they were real cars. Made of steel and pride, not just plastic and profit like the new ones today. One day she goes up to the classic, shocked at its current state of neglect. As she rubs the dirt off the window to peer inside, she sees a for sale note. It explains current owner found something better and now just wants this old hunk out of her driveway. It starts, it runs, and it's free to whoever wants it. The keys are in the ignition and a signed title is in the glove compartment. The young woman can't believe her luck, that someone would give away a classic like this. She gets in, turns the key, and the car roars to life with a newfound passion. She heads straight to the DMV and then the car wash. While on this trip, wife gets a call from the finance company. There has been a mistake, she doesn't actually qualify for the new car. Her payments will all be returned to her, and the new car will be removed from her possession in 48 hours. She is devastated, she loved this new car, and now it's gone just like that. This was so unfair. She felt betrayed. How could the new car do this to her? She is in a panic, she needs a car. Then she remembers the old Chevy. It's just sitting there, waiting for me to drive it again. She's not excited, but she is relieved to know that she still has at least her Chevy to fall back on. As she drives on the long route home, the car-filled silence as the kids are watching another movie with headphones. She has time to think. You know, if I take even half the money I was happily spending on this new car every month and spent it on the old Chevy, she could have the best of both worlds. I could get new seats and new carpet installed and have new seals put in the engine to stop the oil leaks. I could have a block heater put in to keep the car engine warm for easy cold weather starts. She begins to look forward to the looks she used to get from people about her Chevy. In the roomy interior, because despite the great mileage this car got, it was very cramped and felt kind of cheaply made. She gets excited about getting the Chevy buffed up and beautiful once again. But she will still miss this new car smell. So now your wife starts with fixing the old Chevy in her mind. But when she pulls up to the driveway, she is in a panic. What happened to the Chevy? Where is my car? The kids pile out and a man from the dealership pulls up. He needs the keys, cause he's there to drive the new car back to the dealer. She gives them to him, and he drives away. As fast as the new car came into her life, so was its departure. Now she really needed to find her old Chevy. Then she remembers, with a feeling of an Arctic ice suddenly forming in her stomach, the note. The note she wrote. the week she got the new car, and she begins desperately walking the neighborhood, frantically asking neighbors, who all say they've seen it around, but don't know where it is. She keeps walking, and after an hour or so she sees up ahead a young woman waxing a beautiful classic car. She has seen this woman jogging by, and up close she is just as pretty as she appeared to be while running. And she thinks, wow, I've got to find my car, cause if I can't have my new one, then I'd love to make my old one look like that. But as she gets closer, she realizes that is her car. She walks up and notices the license plate says mine, and she gets nervous. But she says there has been a mistake, I need this car back. My main plan for a new car didn't work out, so I have to make do with this still. Then she notices the new seats, and the new interior, and new paint job. And she says inquisitively, why would you put this kind of money and care into this car when it's so old? To this, the young beautiful woman replies in shock, this car is not old. It's classic. And I'm sorry about your new car, but this car is mine now, and there is no way I'm letting it go. The wife is outraged by this and says, but this is my car. I've had it since the first day it rolled off the lot. Now, I can see you've put some money into it, so I'm willing to pay you for it. How much? The young woman replies, the way you treated this car, it might be in the scrap pile with you as its owner, and that would have been a shame. Because a car like this is worth more than money, and I'm sorry you don't see it that way. I wish you the best of luck in finding another car. Walking home, she begins to cry. They're just the old classic Chevy in great shape, but lacking that new car smell. And she went and test drove the new car, plastic and cheap with no real soul. But she wanted it, and only when she was told that she didn't qualify for the new one did she seek to make do with her old faithful classic. Unfortunately, the empty shell remains. The very idea that you can now never know for sure. You may always be the blind fool yet again. And I should clarify that this is the story as I see it. I'm sure my WW would disagree wholeheartedly. But it's also meant as a general metaphor of hope for all betrayed spouses out there, but men in particular, since the style I wrote it in was for men specifically. It's really sad, but this is what I feel happens in a lot of wayward wife scenarios. She drove the old Chevy for 10 years, 10 months, and 27 days. Also notice the way I had the wife calling it the old Chevy, but she changed at times to calling it just Chevy. Those are meant to express the way women start to realize that what they had isn't really all that bad. Even now she begs me to come back and I fight against it, but the guilt tripping of everyone involved is killing my resolve. Mostly for my girls' sake. They want their daddy home so bad. Just thinking of it brings tears to my eyes. It's very rare indeed that a person who strays doesn't look back on it with real regret, unless they are a narcissistic sociopath, which seems to go hand in hand with a lot of cheater-type personalities. She never stops telling me how that space in her garage will always be mine and she will never let anyone else park there again. But this life on the open road is pretty appealing. She probably didn't realize at the time, but by giving me reason to question being with her, the females come out in droves, and it made me realize just how hot a commodity good men are. Those of us in rare form are, indeed, in rare supply. I'm 30 and have the open highway of life before me. It's my choice where I drive to know. My rod does work perfectly, so I'm actually looking forward to using it with many other women who have come round just as soon as they heard we were having problems rumored about my wife's infidelity. She is just broken up about the fact that I may go be with others and be single for a while. See, I work out of state now, and she likes that I hang out all of us whenever I come back. It lets her pretend that I'm only not around because I'm working out of state. So, she is very upset that I will devote some of rather limited time home to pursuing relationship with younger women. I'm one of those many-hat kind of guys. So, I have a thing for classic cars and classic rock. After all, they are called classic for a reason. I mean, no one is going to be singing J-Lo songs 20 years from now. In fact, I specifically chose J-Lo so that some of you reading this would be like, oh yeah, that's right, she had a couple hits several years ago. I totally forgot. But not many of my peers share my unique taste in classic cars. But the backseat of a classic is roomy enough to really get acrobatic in the coital copulation. So, I think guys who think newer cars are better are speaking to their lack of skills and confidence at getting a girl in the backseat at all. They probably think the backseat is there in case you have to haul more than 2 people. She's claiming she is a different person now and doesn't recognize the person she was then, probably because she had lost 65 pounds for him, from 200 to 135 through diet, discipline, and exercise, and now has gained lots of it back. So, I'm telling her that her loyalty and trust account is severely overdrawn so she can slowly build it back up by proving to me I'm her one and only forever. I don't have to be here waiting while she does that. In a few years, if she has done as she professes she will do, then perhaps we can date again. But she will have to compete for my attention now. And I make great money and have every freedom of my schedule. So, I plan on taking some of these young, cute, sweet girls to the Caribbean and Hawaii and Europe, etc. But I still pay all of her bills because she is the mother of my children and I still care for her deeply. Conflicted to a point over the babies, she and the rest of my family are masters at using them to guilt me. They tell me they can't believe I would abandon my family. They all believe she made a one-time mistake, and that may very well be true. But a mistaken with no consequences is one that is doomed to be repeated over and over. Hell, even mistakes with consequences are scarcely learned from. So, this is all about the fact that she will realize that she lost us, and it's important to end the old us completely, and we can both decide if we want to pursue the new us free from obligation. But I'm sure I'll see if she really wants me when she sees how easily I can move on. It's an extension of the 180, I guess. But it's for me to find whether or not I want to stay with her, or if I'm just staying cause I'm comfortable or afraid to leave. I have always been a ladies' man, but much to the many attempts of employees, waitresses, friends of my sisters, and other women, I was faithful fully. One time even an attractive female employee of mine stayed late with me at the mall where I owned some stores, one of which was a Christmas ornament personalization store, and this girl was the hardest worker I'd ever hired. And we talked and worked together regularly. But I wanted to decorate the stand and she wanted to ours and loved Christmas too, so she volunteered to stay after closing and help. It was nearing midnight. She proceeded to dance around very provocatively, and it only then occurred to me that all her behaviors in the past few weeks might have been geared in another way. I was so in love with my wife and our life that I didn't even notice her outwardly obvious advances. I asked her, "What are you doing?" And she just kept up eye contact and came closer, still dancing, trying to get me to engage her. And I was like, Brittany, while I'm obviously flattered, I am very much in love with my wife, and hope you understand I would never do anything to hurt her." She kind of coyly played it off and finished her dance as though that wasn't at all what she had in mind. But I noticed an abrupt coolness in her behavior in the weeks thereafter. So, I had then lots of opportunities and have even more now. But I admit women are problems mostly, and I plan to forget chicks. Stack cash, that's my motto as of late. But I still plan to have much fun eventually. Perhaps take some real beauties to Hawaii or maybe Thailand or New Zealand. But I don't think I'll let anyone as close as my wife was to my heart. After all, it nearly ended me. I plan to tell her that I am seeing other people. She will have to work and compete for my attention the same way she had me competing, albeit without knowing it, for her attention when she was trying to sneak away with other man during our family vacation to San Diego 3 weeks before D-Day. As far as other man goes, you bet your bottom, I burned him in bed. I didn't go to his wife. Too many ways that could go easy for him. And I wanted him hurting bad. So, the wife, he can sweep it up with an "I'm sorry," and she will be ashamed and embarrassed if it ever came out, so she will have all that to consider when she thinks about leaving him. First rule of war, know thine enemy. So, I researched wifey for a while and got her maiden name, which then led me to research and find the person I really wanted to inform. I found mother-in-law, the quintessential nemesis to the son-in-law, and she would tell the whole family ASAP about what piece of crap this guy really is. There will be almost no chance wife will stay with him when the constant pressure and immediate divorce support of mom and dad come into it. They will have a war chest of money and attorneys already waiting to bash the guy who hurt their daughter. And with the details I would give mom-in-law, that hatred would burn with the fire of 1,000 suns. I arranged to meet mom-in-law in San Diego, as this was where she and other man lived. Mom-in-law was heavily involved in the LDS Mormon Church. In my experience, not a real forgiving bunch. She was in charge of some sort of LDS singles groups that put on dances and social events for LDS singles to mingle. Very smart, this church. I've always been impressed with them on so many levels. I posed as a guy new to town, too shy to attend without meeting with her and asking lots of questions to be sure I would be okay with going. Met with her, apologized, and started showing her the details, and told her I came to her because she would know how to best handle and support her daughter during this tough time. I do admit now that I was being pretty callous to the wife's feelings at this time. She would not get the choice to keep the humiliation quiet, and looking back, I feel bad for that aspect alone, but I can't say I wouldn't have done it the same way if I had to do it over again. It proved very effective. Let's just say they were divorced within 6 months, and she got everything: house, kids, and support money. He now lives so meagerly that he now doesn't have the money to afford the water. Old marriage is done, and whether I choose to try to even date her in the future is completely up to me. Also, favorable terms, aka whatever I asked for in the divorce was a requirement of me even being open to trying again. If she fought me on anything, I'd never give her another second of my time nor thoughts. And she agreed. Really, she is one of the more remorseful spouses you could have. I read of some evil, disgusting troglodyte women on here that are much worse than mine was. I have asked her, and she claims that she lost the weight then because, like it or not, she was happy then and felt motivated to lose it. So, I have told her that either she loses it and maintains a healthy eating and workout regimen, or she gets no chance, because all the women I've dated so far, and some have had kids, are all with great bodies and healthy habits. So, I know it can be done. My WW proved it to me. As far as I'm concerned, all future relationships will be with the understanding that we both stay in great shape for one another, though I've not had a problem at all in this area. But I feel like it's unfair of anyone in the relationship to let themselves go once they are in the relationship. very disrespectful to their spouse. I figure that she got to go try her hand in having other relationship, and you are right, it may never work between us in future. But I wanted to know that I was staying with her out of real love and not some sense of obligation or fear of being single and alone. After what she did, this is the only way I can see a reconciliation being a healthy choice for me. It must be made free of any other emotions or thought other than desire to be with her. And it lets her realize that I have lots of options and she should never again give me reason to doubt her absolute loyalty and devotion to our love, lest I be looking fondly to being single again. Remember that I have only ever been with my wife physically up until recently, of course. I met her when I was 17 and she was my first, and yes, I had lots of opportunity to lose it before then. I even had a woman with her wetness touching the head of my, well, you know, and begging for me to let her put it in, but I told her that I was saving that for someone I really loved. And she knew we had just met, so it was far too early for any love to be established. But I got my wife pregnant first time, but I loved her dearly, so it didn't matter to me. She was 21 at the time. I wish I had known then what I know now, or I wish I had waited or not gotten her pregnant at that young age, as I would have learned a great deal more before getting into a marriage. Well, I won't make that mistake twice. And really, I'm okay if my WW and I don't get back together. I look at it as though she will really have to prove to me she is 1 in a million for me to be interested and want to deal with the shame of staying with a woman who sought out another man. It actually angers me now to hear her cry and say how stupid it was and that it meant nothing. I get pissed because I tell her, so you poisoned and destroyed our purest of loves for something stupid. That really makes this the worst betrayal, to know that you traded what we had for something that wasn't even that important to you. But now, as she has made inquiry into some of my plans for my time off, she is getting hurt, pissed that I plan on taking one of the 3 other women I'm seeing currently to either New Zealand or Thailand. She is mad that I never did this for her, and I said I treated you so well and you went and sleeping another guy. I had taken you someplace really nice. Then by the same logic, you probably would have slept with 10 guys. But she is just hurt, I think, that I am being so heavily pursued by these 3, the oldest, which is 5 years younger than her, and the other 2 are ages 20 and 21 compared to my wife's 33. Unfortunately, I work in the oils fields in North Dakota and I have to stay and work over Christmas. A lot of guys are taking Christmas off, but I just can't do it due to some financial goals I must hit very soon. She needs a newer car and so do I. I can't very well have her move over here and not have a car that is in unquestionably good order. It was -15 last night when my trusted 97 Subaru overheated and I thought, man, this could be bad. But I'm seriously saddened to have to miss Christmas. I've never missed it with my girls before. This is a first, and I'm so sad about it. I just finished Christmas here alone. I have to admit it made me think hard about my situation and really regret that my wife made all those choices to destroy what we had. And what we had was truly great. But it's amazing how you can build something up for so long, then in a few months' time raze it all to the ground. I did do Christmas morning via video chat from my tablet. So, I kind of got to be with my girls this morning. As far as how long she will nurse the dream of reconciliation. Firstly, I can't say that the term dream really applies. I have thought there is a real possibility that her and I might date again in the future and have some sort of relationship in the future. I doubt marriage for me in the future though. Probably not to anyone. I have been listening to a guru that preaches that a man gives up so much to go exclusive with one woman. And he believes that most men do it because most women want it and most men don't have an attitude of abundance when it comes to beautiful women. He believes that they act often out of fear that this may be the only beautiful woman that might be interested in them. And I believe, as I always have, that people are more motivated by the fear of loss than the prospect for gain. Think about it. If every man had 10 beautiful women willing to see him casually and he had the complete confidence that he goes out in a single night and get number to 10 more, how likely would he be to go into an exclusive relationship? I am truthfully struggling to see how there are benefits to the man. He could do almost all things outside of the shackles of marriage. In fact, I believe that women often look at marriage as something important to them far more so than to the man. Also, I believe that women might treat their men differently if they knew he could easily leave at any time. In fact, I know of so many men that feel trapped in marriage not because they want to stay, but because they fear the financial consequences of divorcing. Whereas if they never married but perhaps live with a woman, then he can leave much more at will. And perhaps knowing this would cause each person to be on their best behavior in the relationship if it was truly voluntary. I can't say that I would enter into another relationship where I felt like I couldn't leave if I thought it was best for me. I agree that marriage came about for reasons. But I believe that marriage as it existed before has been corrupted by the injustice of law and government. It's now a situation when men and women both are often made to feel shackled to their marriage, not for fear to having the bond of marriage any longer, but for fear of the legal and life-changing consequences that are brought on by the government being involved in your choice to live together as husband and wife. And I am not even opposed to making a solid commitment before God in a marriage ceremony. I am, however, very against marrying with a legal license and the government involved in my vows to my wife, forcing unfair and unjust sanctions on those who choose to marry. The marriage of old has gone by the wayside, and now we have his marriage as a contract. Hence why the divorce courts do not even care about infidelity anymore. They don't care about the wife using the child support money for her own, getting her hair and nails done with no recourse from dad about how the kids are being brought up or clothed. They care nothing about what is fair and right and who is responsible for the destruction of the marital home. I mean, look at the stats on children from divorced homes, and yet they will not even consider in most cases a man or women who continually made selfish choices that would likely end most marriages, like multiple cheating with no real remorse of any kind. They will say that has no bearing in whether or not that qualifies them as a bad parent or good parent. No bearing whatsoever. So, while all experts agree divorce is very traumatic on children and the stats support a much harder life than woe's life circumstances for children of a divorced home, the courts will not connect that selfishness to parenting in any way. I probably should slow my roll before I go on a rant and end up saying something controversial. You can have all the benefits of married life and just choose not to marry. You can even do a commitment ceremony in front of God and witnesses, but never actually marry in the eyes of the government. And if asked why, simply explain that you believe marriage and more so divorce is not a fair game, and that you don't desire to play any game where you start and end at a significant disadvantage. I will admit desire to argue with my wife at times, but it's always on the basis that I wish this had never happened, and that I dream at night that this never happened and I have this great dream life. But what she did was truly not something I can get over. So, while I desire it, I also know I cannot do it. Not unless I wanted to lose myself in the process. But who knows? I'm not the type who would go after her just to avoid someone else getting her. I mean, she is beautiful. Absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, but for me I already get all the offers I care for from young beautiful women, so I'm not too worried. I guess I still date my wife from time to time, but we are not exclusive, and she knows I see several other women as well. But she is worried she will lose me forever, and I tell her that is a distinct possibility. But I will always love her deeply. My ex or not, she is still as close to me as a family member. And I think that's why we still get along so well. It's just the in-love aspect that we suffer with, since there was so much hurt for me. But we don't know what the future holds. I will never marry again, for the reasons I lined out above. Even my cohabitation will be very even, where I will feel free to walk at any time, and they will feel that way as well. This also helps to keep both parties of a relationship on their best behavior. I believe marriage traps you by forcing you to decide whether or not to continue a relationship, not based on the merit of the relationship alone, but rather many factors including assets, finances, and future resources. All of these factors to be decided upon by the government. So, no more marriage for me ever. The only thing that keeps me around is her being desirable enough and me being happy enough to choose to stay. But also, vice versa. She has no cage either. I support her financially and take care of her and my babies either way. So, she chooses to be with me purely for the sake of being with me. Not because she needs my resources, or because she needs something from me. It is truly the purest relationship type to be in. But I can see how, if you are not both way more committed to quality relationships, great communication, lots of maturity, lack of reactivity and anger, this would make this style of relationship hard. Many people, I think, need the cage so that they can't just run when things get hard. But for me, I don't run anyhow, so this style is what I prefer. I mean, think of D-Day. Many people, WS, report that just now, their BS starts to really try hard for them. And many BS report that when they are ready to leave, the WS really tries hard for them. Things start getting done in a manner that hasn't been seen since the days of early courtship. So, I conclude that people always keep their relationships on top priority when it appears the other person is free to leave. With one foot out the door, the whole heart goes into the relationship. Half a year later, things are going well for me. My ex still wants us to be together, desperately so. But I have a new lady who is knockout gorgeous and very much a perfect fit for me. We love the same things, have the same little quirks, and the bonding is nothing short of the best I've ever had in my life. Her body is amazing. And our connection is so intense that I can't believe where I was emotionally 6 months ago versus today. So, to those reading this, if you're miserable staying, then just remember that you have earned the right to leave the minute they stepped out on you. And trust me, if you dedicate yourself to being that kind of man, then the dating world is ripe for a man like you, and you will not suffer from lack of female company. In fact, when I met this girl now whom I adore, I was seeing 6 different women, all of whom wanted commitments, but I had a firm rule that I don't commit exclusively to just one woman for at least 6 months. And they all were okay with that. Now, I'm not saying that every woman I met was okay with it, but if they weren't okay with it, I just told them about my reasoning, and if they still had ego issues, then we parted ways. Much easier to do when you know that you have several other women who are wanting to go on dates with you on the nights you were dating this woman. An attitude of abundance made all the difference instead of the usual attitude of scarcity that most of us men feel when we pursue a new woman. She currently doesn't choose to see anyone else. and that is her choice. She is very responsible mother and woman in most regards. So, I know she is not mentally disturbed somehow, and I know that she chooses to do what she feels is best for her and for our daughters. She has dated other men since our split, but usually this just makes her sad, as most men are pretty lame in many regards, or if not lame, entirely unspectacular. And no, this isn't just me talking about bonding. I always did spend a good deal of my time and attention on focusing on sensual connection and physically learning, as well as communication and relationship techniques. So, I'm sure any other man would be just as good if he was focused as such. But in other areas I'm deficient as a result of my focus on those things. For example, I know almost nothing about the current sports standings in any sport. I know the game, I know the teams. I played many sports and still do. But spending a great deal of my time on things like that just doesn't appeal to me. So, I choose to focus on things like those mentioned above. I work varying shifts far from home currently. When at home it's not like we play house. The kids don't really see us dating or being abnormally affectionate to one another, as I don't believe this would be healthy for them at this age to understand. They know us just as a mom and dad who aren't together anymore but still both love their children very much, like so many of their friends' parents. I think a lot of these assumptions about what I am or who I am and how I must treat everyone in life, including the women I see, are based largely on the fact that, as many numerous cases on here seem to indicate, most BH are usually beta-type males, or at least viewed as such by their WW. And often their WW chose, yes, a choice, not a mistake, to sleep with an alpha type of male. Never liked labels anyhow, I just am who I am. I'm not following some douchebag rule guide on how to be so others see me as a certain type. I am me, simple as that. So, they in a way have to believe I'm all of these horrible things in life, because otherwise it forces to them to confront the part of themselves that they really don't want to. If they knew me at all, they'd see that I am very much a caring and loving father, even though I choose to let women decide for themselves, and not choose for them to avoid them being taken advantage of by me. No one is being led on in any of those cases. I was very honest and upfront with all of them, including and most especially my ex. This is the same type of attitude that a player took advantage of your poor WW and seduced her by manipulation, when in fact she is an adult and is perfectly responsible for her own choices. This is not taking advantage of anyone. They make their own choices, like all real adults do, about what the future holds for me and WW. I can tell you that I don't hate her. I do have another place I stay while I'm in town, and I usually just stay with the other girls when I'm not in my hometown. Honestly, the biggest threat right now to WW is that I may fall for another girl, and she will likely not feel my forgiving nature towards WW, and as such is not likely to enjoy how much WW is still involved in my life. Almost a whole year later, I am happier now than I ever was with my ex. I have been with a woman now for about a year or so, and I have never felt this kind of elation before. I am scarred up, but I am no longer bleeding, and no longer an empty shell. 5 years later, the woman I posted about just before my long hiatus has been cheating on me from the start, it seems. I found out about some of them on Easter Sunday 2018. I have been in a really dark place at times. Man, I thought the first time was bad, but I pray no one goes through this a second time. I've had a noose around my neck a few times and a revolver in my mouth once, but I always seem to pull out of it just barely. My comment: if you have to go through 10 or 20 to before finding one committed to you, that's 10 or 20 you've slept with on a regular basis. You just don't need to marry the first rebound chick you run across. You may not ever find love, but you won't be short on your share of woman. Remember, too many men think loving a woman requires hanging around and letting her ruin you.